Hello everyone. So in the previous class we have discussed about the different membrane processes, okay, and the modules of the membrane, that is spiral wound, tubular type, hollow type, and also the sizes of the different membrane technologies and the different efficiencies and removal efficiencies of the membrane processes. Okay, so now in this class we will study about the different parameters related to the membrane technologies, that is things like flux and permeability, normalization of the membrane, and some of the pre-treatment technologies in the membrane treatment of water. Okay, so first we should know what is meant by flux and permeability. Flux of the membrane or flux of the membrane is defined as the volume of the water flowing through the membrane per unit area per unit time. That is, if you have a membrane of 1 meter square area, then how much water will flow across that membrane per unit time, we call that term as the flux of the membrane. Okay, so it is also called as the membrane permeation flux, or simply the flux of the membrane. Okay, so in this below calculation you can see water flux is given by quantity of water per unit area of the membrane. Okay, that is called as the flux of the membrane. Okay, then there is a term called as membrane performance or normalization of the membrane. Okay. The majority of reverse osmosis systems normally will operate under fairly steady conditions over long period of time if operating parameters remain constant. So that means these membrane systems will work effectively if the feed is of the constant characteristics and under steady state conditions, and the fouling does not occur and the membrane damage is avoided. But unfortunately the water characteristics are very dynamic in nature. That is, the operating parameters like temperature, feed, the permeate flow, recovery, and other parameters will change, and it will lead to the formation of some deposition of some impurities onto the membrane and results in membrane fouling. So normalization is a technique that allows the user to compare operation at a specific set of conditions to a reference set of conditions. That means this allows the user to determine whether changes in flow or rejection are caused by fouling or damage to the membrane, or just to the different operating conditions. That means if you know these normalization techniques, we can take maximum advantages of membrane processes by avoiding the membrane fouling. Okay, so the technique we call it as normalization technique. That means it allows the user to compare operation at a specific set of conditions. That means we can vary the temperature, or we can check the permeate and retention concentration and adjust the performance of the membrane, thereby the reducing or increasing the quantity of the influent. Some of these things can be done. That process we call it as the normalization. Okay, so there is a term called as normalized flow net driving pressure. It is also called as NDP. So NDP and temperature influence the permeability of the membrane to the water. NDP is a function of the applied pressure, pressure drop, osmotic pressure, and permeate pressure of the system. That is, as the normalized flow net driving pressure increases, the membrane will produce more water, and also if it is directly proportional to the temperature as well. If the temperature increases, the membrane becomes more permeable and the flow in the membrane increases. Okay, and the temperature correction factor correlates the changes in flow to the change in the temperature. By multiplying the given flow by ratios of initial and specified values of both NDP and temperature correction factor TCF, the normalized flow can be found. That means the normalization is a technique of getting the maximum utilization of the membranes at normal flow conditions to a reference flow conditions. Since the normalization is directly dependent on the pressure and temperature, considering these two parameters, that is a temperature and correction factor, so we have developed a equation considering the pressure and temperature correction factors. That is, it is given by Q1 is equal to Qt into NdPr divided by NdPt into temperature correction factor TCFR divided by TCFT. Okay, so that means, like we in the previous slides we have discussed that, so this normalization is directly dependent on the pressure and the temperature correction factor, hence it is multiplied. So where the Qn is the normalized flow rate, that is the volume for time at time t, Qt is the actual flow rate, that is volume at time t, NdPr is net driving pressure at reference point, NdPt is net driving pressure at time t, unit of pressure, TCFR is temperature correction factor for temperature at referenced conditions, TCFT is TCF for temperature at time t. That is, we have discussed in the previous slide that normalization is a process of the normal operating conditions to the reference operating conditions. That's why here you can see the units with respect to a reference point as well as the net driving pressure points at normalized flow rates, and this is the equation of the normalized flow. Okay, then comes the membrane fouling. Okay, so like I have told you many times that what is meant by fouling. So fouling is a process, membrane fouling is a process whereby a solution or a particle is deposited on a membrane surface or in membrane pores in a process such as in a bioreactor, reverse osmosis, forward osmosis, membrane distillation, ultrafiltration or nanofiltration, so that the membrane performance is degraded. So that means it reduces the efficiency of the membrane, it will not have the better quality of the permeate, and the membrane performance will be ultimately lost. That process we call it as membrane fouling, and this is the important parameter in the water treatment technologies using the membrane techniques, and it is a major obstacle to this widespread use of membrane processes technologies. Okay, so this is for obvious reasons that membranes are packed very closely and water has to pass through the different layers, then naturally there will be some deposition onto the membranes leading to the fouling of the membranes. And what are the factors which affects the fouling? So basically these are divided into four types, that is structural hydrodynamics, the operating conditions, the membrane properties, and also the material properties. So it mainly depends on these parameters. That means what are the hydrodynamics, that is what is the pressure drop, what is the pressure which is applied across the membrane, that is called as system hydrodynamics and hydrodynamic characteristics during the operation of the membrane processes, and the operating conditions, that is the temperature and other related operating conditions of the membranes, then properties of the membrane, that is the system or components or the membrane module arrangement, and the material properties, that means what is the characteristics of the water which is passing through the membrane. Okay, so it could be high turbid or high hardness. The water may contain very high monovalent ions or divalent ions. The water may contain high impurities, high level of impurities with respect to the suspended and colloidal solids, or the numerous kinds of organic material which may degrade the membrane material, or some viruses, protozoans and bacteria. Okay, so these are the factors which affect the fouling of the membrane. Okay, so how do we measure the membrane fouling? Okay, so based on the parameters like flux, then transmembrane pressure, permeability and resistance are the best indicators of the membrane fouling. That means flux is nothing but the water which is transferred across a membrane per unit area per unit time, so that naturally the flux gets reduced if you have any fouling on the membrane, and also pressure gets reduced if you have some deposition on the membranes. Similarly, the permeability and more resistance will be offered by the membrane if there is membrane fouling, and these are the immediate indicators of the membrane fouling. Okay, like for this the statement here which tells that under constant flux operation the transmembrane pressure increases to compensate for the fouling. On the other hand, under constant pressure operation flux declines due to the membrane fouling. Okay, in some of the technologies as membrane distillation, fouling reduces membrane rejection and thus permeate quality, example as measured by the electrical conductivity, is a primary measurement of the fouling. So that means in some of the membrane distillation technologies, so we can not actually directly measure the flux and transmembrane pressures. In that case, the water permeate quality can be taken as a reference for the membrane fouling. That means the value of electrical conductivity will be usually high if the membrane is not working effectively. Okay, what are the methods of fouling control? Okay, so let us discuss the different methods used in the control of the fouling. Okay, so the fouling is an inevitable phenomena in membrane filtration technique. That is, we cannot avoid fouling because of the working of the membrane filtration and the membrane configurations, but it can be minimized by strategies such as cleaning. Okay, so frequent cleaning and backwashing can be done regularly to minimize the fouling, and appropriate membrane selection. Appropriate membrane selection can be made based on the type of the water, the characteristics of the water or the solute through which we are selecting the membrane for treating the water. Then choice of operating conditions like the pressure and temperature of the membranes, and also the membrane module selection plays an important role to reduce the fouling control. That means we cannot use a X module for all the types of water treatment technologies. That means it comes by experience so as to select which type of membrane module is suitable for treating what kind of water. Then the important one is the pre-treatment of the water before undergoing any membrane processes. That means if you pre-treat the water before using membrane processes, we can reduce fouling to a greater extent. So coming to fouling control by cleaning, see, these membranes can be cleaned physically, biologically or chemically. Physical cleaning includes the gas core, sponges, water jets, or back flushing or backwashing using permeate or pressurized air. So this we have already seen during the cleaning of the rapid sand filter and pressure sand filters. That means we can use the sponges, that is by manually scraping the membranes, and we can use the backwashing technique, that is using the high pressure water in the reverse flow of the membrane, or also we can use pressurized air to clean the membrane. Okay, so those includes the physical cleaning methods. It also includes the biological cleaning. That means we use certain biocides to remove all the viable microorganisms. That means there could be some deposition of living organisms onto the membranes which are present in the impure water. Okay, and these will get deposit on the membrane surfaces, and we can use certain biocides to kill the organisms. That means we can use some strong oxidizing agents. Okay, so that is chlorine, and also we can use the copper sulfate solution to kill some of the microbes. Okay, whereas chemical cleaning involves the use of acids and bases to remove foulants and impurities. Okay, so that means we can also use certain chemical agents, that is by the use of strong acids and bases to remove foulants and the impurities. Then appropriate membrane selection. Okay, so this is also one of the important parameter to reduce the fouling. Okay, that is the nature of feed water must be first known. Okay, that means what kind of water we are using by using to treat it with the help of membrane. That means the membrane selection is an important parameter to reduce the fouling. That means if you are using a surface water, what kind of membrane should be selected? If you are using a groundwater, or if you are using a water from sea for the desalination process, so these things should be carefully known before selecting the membrane processes. Okay, for example, for aqueous filtration, a hydrophilic membrane is preferred. For membrane distillation process, a hydrophobic membrane is preferred. Then choice of operating conditions. This is also important. That means whether you are going to select a cross flow pattern or dead end pattern, and the pressure conditions of the membrane processes. Okay, that is, for example, the cross flow pattern is often prepared to dead end filtration because the turbulence generated during the filtration entails a thinner deposited layer and therefore it minimizes the fouling. Okay, in some applications such as in membrane bioreactor applications, air's core is used to promote turbulence at the membrane surface. That means if there is some turbulence over the membrane, then it will not allow the fouling to happen. Then pre-treatment of water to prevent the fouling. Okay, so there are many pre-treatment technologies available in the prevention of the membrane fouling. Like we have already discussed some of the technologies like sedimentation, coagulation, flocculation, and apart from that, so we can also use some of the specific pre-treatment techniques like the use of powdered activated carbon and pre-oxidation using any strong oxidizing agents, or also we can use biofiltration methods or ion exchange resins to remove the excess of hardness before using any membrane, or also we can use any integrated pre-treatment systems. That means any one of the combinations of the above methods, so based on the suitability to pre-treat the water before sending it to the membranes. Okay, and let us see the pre-treatment techniques in detail. That is coagulation. As you all know, that is we have discussed what are the different types of coagulants which are used in the pre-treatment of water. That is usage of alum, ferric chloride, electrolytes. Any coagulants can be used to remove some of the suspended impurities present in the water before using the water for membrane processes, and it is most common and effective pre-treatment process used for contaminant removal in drinking water. Okay, the next one is called as powdered activated carbon. Okay, so if you use powdered activated carbon, then that pre-treatment technology is referred to as adsorption. Okay, adsorption is a process wherein the suspended or very fine impurities gets adsorbed onto the surface of a adsorbent. Here the adsorbent is an activated carbon. Here powdered activated carbon is mostly used because it contains more specific area. That is, adsorption is directly proportional to the surface area of the adsorbent. More and more fine layer of a adsorbent, then better efficient adsorption takes place. Okay, this can also be used as a pre-treatment option. That is, here you can see a packed bed of activated carbon adsorption tower, and the coagulated and sedimented water is sent to pass through this bed, and all the impurities like fine and suspended impurities, they get deposited onto the surface of this powdered activated carbon, and you get the treated water on the other side as effluent. Okay, and this water can be used for the treatment using the membrane processes. Okay, then pre-oxidation, it is one of the method of using certain strong oxidizing agents to treat the water. Okay, so before using the water for membrane processes. Okay, so if you use any strong oxidizing agents, then naturally it will suppress the microbial growth because of the oxidation action onto the microbes present in the water. Okay, so that means this will kill most of the microbial growth, and it will also degrade some of the organic matter. Okay, some of the strong oxidizing agents known to us are chlorine, which is more common, and we can also use ozone and potassium permanganate. So these are commonly used in the pre-oxidation of the water. That is, here you can see pre-filtration for solids removal. That is, before using the water for nano or RO filtration, the water can be used with the help of this microfiltration. So this is a pre-treatment method done to use the membrane process of nano or RO process, and it is done by using a microfiltration to get the clear and efficient quality of the permeate. And this is what the pre-oxidation means. That means we can use the pre-oxidation method for the removal of iron or magnesium. Okay, so not only iron or magnesium, it will also remove some of the biological impurities like I told you in the previous slide. And the filtered water or permeate through the filtered water from the pre-oxidation process can be used as an influent to the reverse osmosis or nanofiltration membrane, okay, which comes out as a treated permeate. Okay, so note that here the treated effluent using the membrane process is called as permeate. Okay, and the one which remains behind this membrane is called as retentate. That is the one which is retained. Okay, so next we have something called as biofiltration. Okay, so biofiltration can also be used as a pre-treatment method. Okay, so although biotreatment method is mostly used for waste treatment process, that is MBR process, membrane bioreactor processes, only in rare cases it can be used as a pre-treatment in case of ultra filtration methods. Okay, so this is how the biofiltration works. Okay, so when the wastewater is allowed, so it may have the two different layers. That is, on top layer you will have the aerobic layer, and below that you have the anaerobic layer, and this is the filter bed. Okay, so on this filter bed the microbial culture, microbial slime layer will be grown, and the aerobic layer will be there at the top, and the bottom layer will turn into anaerobic, and slowly with the passage of time this layer will fall off from the filter bed. Okay, so thereby removing most of the microbes from this effluent water. Okay, and this is the treated water you get out by using biofiltration methods as a pre-treatment option. But note that this biofiltration is usually used in the treatment of wastewater. Okay, but in some cases it is used as a pre-treatment method in case of ultrafiltration of the water. Then we also use certain ion exchange resins. Okay, so these resins have three-dimensional structures with polymeric chains. The structures contain magnetized compounds, and other organic material is removed by ion exchange process. That means these resins contains the cation and anionic resin modules. That is, if the water contains high charged particles in the form of monovalent and divalent ions, that may clog and result in the fouling of the membrane. So we can pre-treat by using this ion selection method. That means this is the cation resin wherein the effluent is allowed, that is the positively charged resin, and again the effluent is taken out and it is passed through again bed of anion resin. Okay, so it will remove the oppositely charged ions and the effluent can be taken out, and then this effluent can be used as an influent to the membrane processes. Okay, so this is the ion exchange resin method of pre-treatment of water to prevent the fouling. Okay, then last one we call it as integrated pre-treatment systems. Okay, so like if the water contains very high amount of impurities, then we can use any one of the combination based on the type of the water quality. Okay, so that means you can use coagulation followed by ion exchange method. You can use biofiltration along with the activated absorption, or any one of the combination based on the available water quality, and also to get the desired effluent quality. But however, this proves to be very costly, as it involves 2 to 3 different methods. Okay, so although the membrane processes are very effective in pathogen removals, so they are prone to be fouling and they tend to be little bit costlier. Okay, so apart from these pre-treatment techniques which we have studied here, there could be other methods also, so which probably we'll talk about in the next coming classes. Okay, so that's all for today. See you in the next class.